Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. I mean, the back and forth, and the ignorance around the Ukraine war that's spread to, it comes directly from the propaganda arm of the GRU, the KGB, I guess the FSB, their federal version of that, is an ongoing concern. Needless to say, it's getting harder and harder for them to convince people. One of the things that we dealt with over the last, 3 months especially, was the sanctions go on Russia, and we continue to ratchet them up. And the story comes like, the ruble is now the most powerful currency. It's the most resilient currency in the world, and obviously our sanctions did not work because of that. Well, first of all, the inflation rate in Russia is somewhere in the order of 21 to 32%. Some food items, the prices have gone up 56% on regular foodstuffs. Now, in the United States, and this is in Russia. In the United States, we've experienced inflationary pressures on food, and there were certainly ones that jacked up compared to others, but it was usually about availability and desire. It was a supply shock related thing, and the cost of these things, what affected them the most was transport costs, gas. The price of gas, has affected the price of everything else. If you look at how Fox News has been tracking inflation and how it's impacting everybody else, these are the two things they play up. That prices are way up without pointing out the fact that they are almost singularly up because of oil and gas supplies, because of the war in Ukraine, and that drives the price of oil up on the market. When you remove 5 million barrels a day of oil, of Russian oil from the system, everybody else has to make that up. If you have less of something, it costs more until you can produce more of it, in which case the price goes back down. It's been mitigating that way for a while now, and oil prices hit I want to say a 2018 low this week, $88 a barrel. After everybody a month ago was saying $170 a barrel minimum, we're going to $200 a barrel. It's just, right. Okay, so today it's 88.53 for the WTI. This is the current price of oil right now.
What does that little negative red thing mean, Hal?
That means it's going down. It went down a half a percentage point yesterday.
Okay.
At end of day, it had lost half a point. The futures on it are going even lower because world production has increased, refinery capacity is getting back where it was, and there's going to be one of the ways that we can attack Russia and some of these other bad players in the world is by lowering the price of oil, because their entire economy runs on the price of oil, not the value of oil as a fossil fuel for transportation. That's the difference in the United States. There is a lot of investment in fossil fuel in the United States in companies that produce fossil fuel. And so if you have pension plans and that kind of stuff, and they're invested in oil and gas companies, then, and if the price goes down, so does the investment of those pension plans, and therefore they can't meet their needs if a lot of their investments go that direction. Okay, that's understood. And so there's this kind of game that gets played about how much, how low we economically should allow it to go for, from a business standpoint, because if the bottom drops out of all these pension plans because of where their investments are, and this is, by the way, this is part of a trend away from these things over time, but you can't do it quickly. It doesn't work that way. It's going to be a slow moving, incremental change in where pensions put their stuff. That's what this ECG or ESG or whatever the score, ESB, forget right now. But this environmental, social, and government ESG score that tells you whether this is a good company or a bad company to invest in.
Mhm.
A lot of that is about whether it has a future or not, whether it's in a stable country, where the industry is in a stable country that will actually withstand the next decade, will be able to play nice, will not get kicked out because of sanctions at some point, and whether or not it's environmentally stable, meaning if we're going to move away from that technology because it's toxic, it's better to invest in, if you're investing, especially a pension plan, long-term in something. The ESG scores are really meaningful to you because it tells you whether the business is going to be there in 10 or 20 years by its own hand, not because governments will regulate it out of existence. Now, there's a huge difference between that investment structure being why you need, why the price of a barrel of oil matters in the United States versus Russia, Saudi Arabia, and other countries, and Venezuela even, where they're in many ways the value of their currency legitimately, materially, is pinned to the production of and the transportation of oil. If the price tanks for Russia, they're doing more work for less money the lower the price of oil gets. Right now, Russia's break-even price for oil is $50 a barrel. That it costs them $50 a barrel to basically get it out of the ground and get there. Anything over 50 is profit. And because it's in the millions and millions and millions of barrels a day, it stacks up over time. It's nearly exponential. However, because they can't sell it to the European market and the normal market price, they have to sell it on the black market, which is a lower price than what's in the normal market. It's cheaper because it's illicit. It doesn't go through the normal channels. And so when there's, when Russia, for example, sells oil to China now, or even to India or someplace, there's a huge difference between selling that oil directly to Europe, where you can put it in a pipeline and it's there in a matter of hours, minutes, whatever, and the 36 days it takes a tanker to go from the port in St. Petersburg or wherever they end up getting it out in the Black Sea to the south of, the South China Seas and over there. That's a huge distance. And there's a lot of stuff that can happen along that route that's a problem. And it's more costly. 36 days at sea raises the cost, that $50 a barrel worth, by a couple of bucks every single one. If the crude oil price in the rest of the world hits $70, Russia will be losing money on every barrel they produce. That may or may not, depending on if you believe their numbers, already be happening there. They might be puffing themselves up to say we're fine.
Right.
There is a monetary reason why you'd want cheap oil in the West, because we don't really want oil for very long, and we don't care. If you're an oil company or a gas company, we want you to eventually transition to nuclear or transition to renewables, something along those lines, depending on who you are, away from fossil fuels. So we don't care if the price of oil drops to $20 a barrel, because that greases the wheels for the rest of our economy. It ruins Russia, though. And that is where we weaponize it, and that very well may be what you're seeing. Not only are you seeing, because the Saudis aren't going to drop that price for that very reason. They're tightening what they're going to release into the market because they know that, because that affects them the same way. But this price, this $88.53, some people will recall a few, when was it? 6 weeks to 2 months ago. I started bringing up the point that in 2014, the last time oil spiked and we had this huge rise in oil prices, within 6 months, it went from $112 a barrel to $40 a barrel. Oil in 2015 was $43 a barrel. Now, what's the primary difference between oil usage in the world in 2015 and now? That there's less of it. That there is more demand destruction going on in the West then there is increased demand even in India or even in Africa, which are the two biggest developing nations that still need transportation fuel like that. There is less that in and of itself will drive us towards an honest lowering of the worth and value of a barrel of oil. Much less the military reason why you would go, you know what, we need to flood the market and do what the Saudis tried to do with the shale oil revolution in the United States, which is what happened in 2014. They tried to crater it. We do that, and Russia's economy is already in free fall. I'll show you when we come back. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Welcome back to the show. Look at that, Johnny. We were having such a good time.
Yeah.
Talking
Your
to you.
hand smells like tuna
Doing
house.
my thing. And then apparently we were just taking care of the cat. Welcome back to the show. It's the House Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Don't forget, it's Subscription Saturday. So subscribe on Twitch or on YouTube or both. I like both.
Or
both
else.
Is good. Both. Huh?
Huh?
Or what? Who?
Or else?
No. I don't threaten people at all. I mean, this should be voluntary. You know what a big fan of democracy I am? People should do it because they want to do it. And they should be
I've been
happy.
doing a thing at the at convoy shows. About halfway through, I'll walk up to the mic and say, "I think this bears mentioning. You're free to go." Nobody expects it.
Born to be mild. If any of you are feeling tired, I am. So you must be. That's hilarious.
Hey, lovechat.xyz. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
And thank you, Natalie, for the super chat as well. And by the way, thank you guys for gifting subs on Twitch as well. If you have Amazon Prime, it doesn't cost you a dime to have your own sub, but you can always gift them to other people as well. All right.
Yep.
So when I was getting to before we went to break and came back from it sight unseen,
Mysteriously.
because I was hiding from the truth was I was hiding the fact that Johnny was indisposed, I would say. No,
Yeah,
the cat was indisposed.
You should see what I wear while I feed my cat.
I don't, you know what? My subscription to your OnlyFans lapsed because...
I know I need to post more.
No, because I was using a Target gift card to pay for it, and it apparently the number, they caught on. So before we went to the break, the point I was trying to make about the price of oil, and that there was a strategic reason to collapse the price of oil between us and Russia. Not just that we don't want to run our cars and our economy on, rotting dinosaur goo for the rest of time, but that we would also like to, and I still don't understand why Republicans, like the maggots especially, don't understand the off-grid potential of solar and then electric vehicles. I don't know why they don't get it. Do you? Because if you had an electric car and a series of solar panels and a battery system, and then you could be hooked up to the regular electrical grid if you wanted to be, but even if you don't want to be, once they reach a certain level of efficiency, you could charge up your car, go 200 and some odd miles, if as we get this technology better, without ever being hooked up to anybody else. You don't have to wait for some Saudis to pull some goo out of the ground or some Russians to do it or even anybody here to do it. Turn it into a fuel, refine it, put it in a place where you have to go pick it up, put it in your vehicle.
That sounds so weak to me.
It does.
That sounds really weak.
It's a little silly, especially if we can improve on it, and I think that we should. Especially when the last people on Earth who are making this stuff and holding this stuff and saying, I have this stuff, so you can't, and you got to do what I say, or I won't give you this stuff, are some of the worst people ever. You'd think. We didn't learn that after 9/11. Remember that? There was a big turn, I will say. There was a big turn away from that kind of stuff after 9/11 when people recognized we need to stop getting our, there was a bridge that was built between the no war for oil crowd and the why are we giving money to people who hate us crowd.
Yep.
And for a little while, there was an understanding. And I don't think that understanding has to go away. I think that can be revived. As a matter of fact, I think it lives on as an understood in many ways, but there's a bit of like like, I don't know if it's anti-feminism or anti-feminine or anti-gay. Because, I'm not a big fan of the phrase homophobia because these people aren't scared. They have a character defect. That driving an electric car is weak because it goes bzz instead of rum, and that's it. That's the whole thing. Like the Marjorie Taylor, that's it.
Even though they're fast as balls.
Oh yeah, and like it's crazy. It's like being on a roller coaster when they take off. You ever do California Adventure? If you ever go there, they have the what's now the Incredibles ride, but it was another kind of generic one, California Dreamin' originally, and it starts with a maglev pull to shoot you into the first few loops, and it takes off so fast. It's like it more than any other roller coaster I've ever been on. It's shocking when it takes off. It's like those ones that ramp up.
Go vroom vroom. People go so far as to put little kazoos on their exhausts to make their car sound louder. The exhaust kazoo is something I will never abide.
Yeah, I agree. Ever. I don't think that solves the machismo problem. Isn't going to do it. No.
And I really think it's supposed to.
Maybe if you put 1,000 of them.
This will get Vin Diesel to put me in his movie.
Right, yeah. So it's about family. So one of the, again, the story, yeah, it hurts. Be careful with that. You've had a sore throat all week.
Now I see why they've got a kazoo. I can't do that all day.
You can't do that all day. You can't stick your head out the window like a dog going wing wing. No, it's not macho at all. That's not sexy. It's like an animal to scrub for the customer. Don't I cover this up? So, well, this is in CNBC, but I've seen this quote in a bunch of different places this week, and it's because it's true. Russia faces, quote, economic oblivion despite claims of short-term resilience, economists say. And I've been watching, and I mentioned this with our dear friend Philip Ittner when he was on the show last week, that I've been watching
the incident.
Yeah, quit it. You can't do that when
coming home.
Oh yeah, you can't leave. You're gonna scare some people. They don't follow along. There's a gap in their understanding. You're gonna scare them. He's fine. He's back home. I think he's even in Michigan right now.
I should not be playing like that.
No, you should not. Not the way that thing is going. The International Monetary Fund last week upgraded Russia's GDP estimate for 2022 by 2.5 percentage points, meaning the economy is now projected to contract by 6% this year instead of 8.5. More, however, we contracted, we expanded 0.9% this year, or this, like in the last quarter, and then the quarter before that, it was 0.6% we expanded. We had 0.6 expansion, 0.9% expansion. Russia's contracting by 6% if you're being nice.
It sounds very strong and masculine.
They're doing very great. Yeah, it's very macho. It's very macho. I must break you. However, many economists see long-lasting costs to the Russian economy from the exit of foreign firms. You think? The loss of its long-term oil and gas markets. Really? And its diminished access to critical imports of technology and inputs, which of course is why foreign firms are leaving and why there's an impact to its long-term oil and gas stuff, because all of the oil and gas they get out of the ground, they use American and European technology to do it. I think one of the problems with oil, that as far as people's understanding of it is how simple and weird the pumps look. That when you look at the complexity of a rig on water, of one of the big like Gulf oil rigs, you can see that there's a big tube in there, and then they hit something, and then it starts gushing out. Right, that's the picture you have in your mind. And then they stick this thing in, and it's like a plumbing pipe, and then it just starts going out. Then you got it. And, right?
Wait, I'm starting to like this. Could you slow down a little?
I'm sorry. All right, loosen your belt. But the pumps themselves look like, 1800s technology. They don't look like they've changed at all. Well, when you go to like shale oil and some of the other stuff, or you're digging in places with permafrost and all this kind of stuff, just keeping it open for the pumps to keep working is a task in and of itself. And one of the ways that the, like the American economy, the reason we've added so much oil and gas is because we have one pump and it sprawls out with these tubes for miles in some cases in either direction. We have multiple ports going down into the ground, and then the oil comes up from into this source, and an enormous amount can come out through one nozzle. The Russians, but it's really complicated to regulate all that and to keep track of the regulators on it, so parts of it don't freeze up and gum up the works, or some parts of it collapse because one of the tunnels where the oil is coming out runs out or gets low because the pressure's not from there, and then there's stuff that gets in there, stone that starts coming up through there, and then it wrecks the whole thing, and then it lurches and stops and then explodes and kills everyone. There's a constant, that's one of the problems that you have to deal with getting oil out of the ground. And that's that's one of the relatively rudimentary problems. The the technology used to mitigate some of that stuff is, you would think, relatively simple. Pressure gauges and the like, 1960s level technology as far as that goes. The Russians don't even make that stuff anymore. They don't have, the people that would make it left a long time ago. Their space program is largely piggybacked on the United States. If one of the reasons why they're like, we're not going to be in this ISS anymore, the heck with you guys, it's because they can't.
Yeah.
They don't materially have the ability to do it, and they are never going to again. By the way, the Chinese space program is going to go offline to everybody else as well. They are solely focusing on their space station and fighting satellites. They have satellites with arms on them that are built just to push other satellites out of orbit. That's all they're doing. That's the whole business.
Like Rock'em Sock'em Robots?
Yes. That's it. The big story, of course, and we got to end the show, and I appreciate you guys being here. We're going to try and get Philip on as a guest. He's back home, live in studio over the next couple of weeks. We'll see how we can make that happen. But
yeah, I know he was excited about having his technology be more stable.
Yeah, and it'll be good. I want people to watch over the next week or so the stories about how China's no longer going to be negotiating with us on drugs and law and any kind of the space program and military stuff. They've been lying about all those things for the last 6 years.
Right.
There's nothing new except we now no longer have to pretend that they're even players. And the same thing is true about Russia. We just no longer have to pretend that they're an honest player anymore. We should be relieved to some degree if they weren't so awful.
And that rocket
dangerous.
did finally fall to Earth, Amos.
Yes, it did. And it landed in the sea.
Yeah.
But anyways, take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. This is the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. And remember, as the primary the next week come up, or the elections this fall, if you have you're ever confronted with a choice that you believe is the lesser of two evils, choose less evil.
Evil.
See you next week.